All right, here we are at yet another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies. I was on a coaching call helping one of my buddies out the other day, and he said somebody asked me what the name of my podcast was, and the guy that I was helping, he's like, "Oh, he's got like a trillion of them." He says he's got a lot of podcasts.
Oh, so he
A-
knew it, huh?
AKA, we're on podcast number 459. 459. That's years worth of information
Yep.
for our listeners.
Yep.
Today's podcast title is Creative Real Estate Professional versus Amateur Psychology.
Okay.
This is not a title that will get a lot of listeners, I would presume. But if you actually do listen, it will change your life drastically. Drastically. It's not a sexy thing to talk about, which is why most don't talk about it. But it is absolutely, in my opinion, on the steam train. You know, the days where there were steam trains.
Mm-hmm.
This is the guy shoveling the coal into the hole. Without
Oh.
him, it doesn't go. There's so many other people to talk about on the train, but nobody talks about the guy shoveling the coal.
Yeah, and it's not the first job anybody wants, right?
Exactly.
Well, I
So,
listened to you a few weeks ago, whatever we talked about. I know what we talked about, but it's irrelevant. But I listened to you last 3, 4 weeks ago, and the next day I got the deal that's on the
yeah.
market today. So
See,
there. So
there you
I
go.
listened to Bill.
Nice. All right, today's description, and it's not Bill, it's Bill's experience that I'm just cultivating for you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually listening to thousands of buyers and sellers. So
Sure, go ahead. Be modest.
here is today's description. What if the greatest, most extraordinary, creative real estate deals that will get you to retire early aren't hidden in some secret technique or deal strategy, but instead in a psychological blind spot that 99% of all investors will never recognize? Never mind implement to do deals and become wealthy and free from the rat race of today's society. Are you tired of walking away empty handed from your seller conversations? Then finding out later another investor snagged the deal? The truth be told, there is a moment in every deal negotiation when a professional and an amateur take entirely different paths. So, exactly what is that invisible line dividing success and failure? Well, I can tell you this: it's not knowledge, capital, or slick scripts. And today's 60 minutes, in today's 60-minute episode, I will reveal why you feel like you've been boxing a shadow when talking to sellers and a bit exhausted or run down. Then, how to do a simple fix so you too can start working less and making more. The psychology insight revealed today might very well be what cracks open your slump and get you making deals. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big bold promise, isn't it?
Well, that's your style now, isn't it?
I guess. And you want to know something?
Yeah.
My style, I'm glad you brought it up because my style lately is a big bold promise with a stupid simple solution.
Oh, my favorite, because
Yeah,
we appreciate stupid in the audience
simple.
here. Yeah. Yeah. On the
I
other
bought
side here.
I bought a sign when I was away.
Oh no.
Uh, yeah, It says, "Warning: no stupid person beyond this point."
Oh
I was
God.
gonna hang it on my office door, but I haven't had the balls to do it yet.
Well, the problem is stupid people don't know they're stupid because they're stupid. They don't know they're
Yeah,
stupid. They
that's
think they're
me.
smarter than you are.
That's me. I've been
I'm not
stupid
even
most
going
of
to
my
quote
life.
what I heard recently. No.
All right, let's get down to the podcast. So, let's just do some housekeeping. So, I wanted to let you guys know that you should subscribe to us because we're on the air every week. Like I said,
Mhm.
we've got 459 podcasts. That's an hour every week of hardcore training. I'm not trying to sell you nothing or pitch you anything. I'm just here giving back. My number one tool for making me lots of money, has made me millions and millions of dollars, is Karma. And no, I'm not talking about Pete's dog because her name is Karma.
No, she's not a moneymaker. Trust me. She's a
So
money sucker.
I'm just giving back, so you do what you want. I don't even look at my statistics anymore. I have no idea. I lost track at over 2 million downloads. We could have 5 million and I would never know it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing this for any other reason except to help the listener. I listen to a lot of podcasts myself, especially political podcasts, and it is amazing how much you can learn when you go underground and get off the mainstream media or mainstream places. I'm kind of a little bit on a rant right now, but I've got books everywhere. I read a lot. I love to read, and it's gotten to a point now where I don't even hardly buy from Amazon anymore. I do occasionally, but a lot of my books I've been buying on eBay,
Mm.
or if I can't find them on because they're older books. But my point is, I read books that people request inside of books. So when I'm reading a book, they're like, "Oh,
Oh.
this book was great. You should read it." Or
Mm.
I got this from that book or whatever. And that's how I've been, because so it's just a whole nother layer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only telling you that because that's what happens in real estate. You go through layers. So if you're just trying to get surface information, you're trying to get free information on YouTube and all that kind of stuff, that's great. But those guys are trying to get you into their funnel and sell you stuff. And this podcast is not about that. Although, if you do want to do stuff with me, that's fine. You can go to flippinghousesforrookies@gmail.com and I can do a free consultation and all that stuff with you. But that's not the purpose of doing it. Also, I've created a weekly newsletter called the Creative Real Estate Dealology Newsletter, which is the URL. It's actually in the description. So if you click on the link in the description, or just go to Creative Real Estate Dealology Newsletter.com/subscribe. You will find it there. I also have released a new book. It's called Creative Real Estate I'm sorry, Leads, Deals, Cash, Creative Real Estate, Operator's Manual. You can find that on on Amazon. Just type in William Hawthorne. My last name doesn't have an E, and you'll see the 6 or 7 books that I printed or that you can buy, and that is my newest edition. Also, make sure you, like I said, subscribe and like us. Last thing I want to say, Peter, because I do listen to a lot of podcasts, and
Mm-hmm.
I just went to I went on vacation with my family. We were down Hilton Head, so I drove. So I had a lot of time in the car with podcasts. And the one thing that we don't do that I should do is we don't have commercials in the middle of the podcast.
Oh.
These guys, they got their handful of products that they sell for
Oh.
others, and they just pound the crap out of them. And I don't do that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's proof. That's proof, which is why I'm elaborating on this morning. That's proof that I'm not trying to shove. I do this. I spend probably between 3 and 4 hours a week writing the podcast. Actually, probably 3 and 5 hours a week with the publication and all that stuff, of just volunteering my time so you can get information. So I'm just here to help, and there's no other way to put that. So with that said, let me help you.
Okie doke.
So let's get started with today's podcast. Uh, so here we go. How will you ever find out how many deals you are missing and how much money you're losing by not doing deals? Right. I surveyed this
Mm.
point at one time on my email list, which I don't email as much as I used to because the list is just whatever. But I do it in the newsletter now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, The number one answer is millions.
Probably.
So it befuddles the living crap out of me. Like you got a person that needs money or wants to relieve themselves of their life or get freedom, and we're going to talk about all that today. But they don't make this important enough to make deals. They know that they're losing millions of dollars by not doing deals.
Mm.
Because that's a surveyed answer, right? Which is true, by the way, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I always get a kick out of it. I'll do a coaching, a consult, and I'll get all done. And my coaching is not expensive at all, especially compared to
No.
many
No.
others.
Compared to other, it's ridiculous.
It's like literally like a penny on $100. You know what I mean? But the point is this: they'll tell me, okay, I'm going to wait, Bill. I'm going to do a deal first and get the money to pay you. And it just befuddles me because it's like, well, you haven't done a deal yet. So what makes you think you're going to do a deal? What's different in your head now that was there? Because if you knew how to do a deal, you would be on the phone saying to me, I've done a couple deals, I want to do more.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Instead of saying I haven't done a deal yet and I got to crack it open. You know, it just befuddles me, right? And,
Yep.
and technically, sometimes life just isn't fair. You know, you have certain, you know, you grew up in a certain environment or you have certain ideas about life, and they could be right or they could be wrong. I'm not saying anything other than, I mean, like if you grew up in Arizona in the middle of the desert in an Indian reservation, you may not know how to fish because there's no lakes around.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Or or if you grew up in Alaska in the harshest environments in the world, you know, as far as snow and stuff like that, you'll never know what it's like to lay on a beach.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So some people just grow up in environments. It just is what it is, and they have certain knowledge and knowledge they don't have, and they don't realize that, right?
Yeah, I think the odd thing I just thought about when you're talking about this is it's not unique to being somebody interested in real estate. It's their whole lives. You know, they've always been that way, whatever the job is.
Right.
They can't conceive being the manager or being the foreman or being the boss or whatever it is to move ahead. They just can't quite conceive it. So it'll carry on into this. So you kind of have to break out of the thought process or the
Right.
the level in your own head sometimes. So keep listening, keep reading.
That's what a coach is good for. I mean, I have a coach. I have a coach I talk to every Friday morning.
Yeah.
Anybody in my life knows. Don't even try to contact me Friday morning. I'm with my coach, and it's three and a half hours. And sometimes it's just me, blah 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 blah, just complaining about everything. And then some Friday mornings, it's like, are you kidding? But he's a sounding board that I trust, and he always has a different perspective. You know, think of it this way: a car battery
Mm.
has a positive terminal and a negative terminal, right?
Yep.
If it didn't have that, the electricity wouldn't flow. If you just had positive and no negative, it would just be stagnant.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you had a negative and no positive, it would be stagnant. The car would not operate. The electricity would not flow in the car.
Yep.
And this is you by yourself on your own island without a person that might be a little bit smarter than you or have more experience than you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Sure. Two heads are better
So
than one.
I had none of that written down, and we just went through probably an hour and a half ago. So, what
It
is the
is.
secret no one ever talks about? What is the secret no one talks about that every professional does inherently or consciously,
Hmm.
right? I was recently asked by a trusted comrade, what do you think makes you let me see. What do you think makes you be Bill the most in the world of real estate? Which was a good question. You know, in other words, what's my unique selling proposition if you wanted to talk marketing? Like what makes me different,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't really that type of a question. It was just a person that were, you know, smoking cigars and talking shit, right?
Sure.
Uh, and the answer came to me quick. So, what makes me different when it comes to buying deals? Why is it that I buy deals,
Sure.
right? And there's many others, because I'm around other people that buy deals too. And the answer came to me quickly. And the answer is I have an overabundance of curiosity.
Hmm.
No idea why that is, but I've always been extremely curious. And by the way, I have a gauge of curiosity, and my gauge is a lot lower than my wife's. My wife has the most amount of curiosity I've ever seen in one
Oh.
person. And it's the
Mhm.
funniest thing in the world because all I have to do is just say one little thing. Well, I'll tell you later. And she cannot take that. She
Yeah.
cannot take that. Right.
Yep.
I'm always trying to learn something from someone or other people.
Hmm.
That's my trait. And not everybody has that. But
Mm.
it can be taught, right? And to elaborate on what might seem to be too simplistic, consider this. Everyone has their own unique experience with how the world works. And what you've experienced is uh, is more compelling than what you learn secondhand,
Of course. Oh yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And of course, secondhand means uh, having been used in the past by someone else,
Hmm.
right? And the hard truth I needed to learn through all my coaching and thousands of setup calls is some lessons have to be experienced before they can be understood.
Hmm.
This is the exact reason why I say career real estate is made to do, not learn.
Right.
And in my book, which I'm going to talk about again, I'll talk about it a couple times because my entire career has become this is is how do you uh, uh, get experience so you can learn, right? Before you can understand
Mm.
anything.
Yeah. Kind of. It's
Right?
almost a vicious cycle. I mean, you have to have something to start with, but you can't sit and learn the entire thing, and then all of a sudden just jump in.
So my entire system, which we call the leads, deals, cash booster blueprint,
Hmm.
is all about that. It's how you can do recreate real estate deals and not be attached to them. Pretty much like being a realtor and just brokering the deals
Yeah.
without having any exposure or money needed to do it.
Well,
And the entire book talks about that.
I'm sure a lot of people don't even consider real estate because they think, oh, I don't have any money,
Right.
or I can't because before they even look at what a way to get into it,
Right.
which
I
you
mean,
do here with this.
some lessons have to be experienced before they could be understood.
Hmm.
Right. So the only job I've had in the last 40 years is I was a consultant, automotive repair consultant, because I own an automotive repair shop for 27 years. And I got consulting from this company out of California. And I later went to work for them for 6 years. I traveled 40 or 45 weeks a year. I started the first 6 months. I was the worst guy. I don't know why they didn't fire me. I had no sales. I had 10%. It was 100%. It was 100% commission.
Ooh.
So there were weekends it cost me $200-300. There were weekends I made $10,000.
Mm.
Right. So I will never forget this. Never forget this because this is when I first started talking about this way back then. This is 10, 12 years ago.
Hmm.
Right. I got reprimanded for it.
Oh,
Yeah, I got
ouch!
reprimanded for it.
What'd
So
you do?
I used to say to my clients, listen, it's like sex.
Oh.
I can show you, I can explain it to you, I can show it to you. Hell, I know I can go on the internet and show you how it's done. I mean, that's what porn is all about, right?
Mm.
There's magazines, there's any kind of thing you want to know about sex, you can get that information.
Hmm.
But until you have sex, you don't know what it's like. You don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I get reprimanded for that. I later turned it into, it's like it kind of, and I've talked about it on the podcast. It's kind of like driving.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can read about it, you can be in a car and watch somebody else do it, but until you get behind the seat of the wheel and push that brake to know how sensitive or not sensitive it is, or hit
Mm-hmm.
that gas pedal and know how fast it will respond, you don't know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm talking about here. So sometimes, you know, some lessons have to be experienced before you can understand them, right? Not
Sure.
all lessons, but some, right? So we're victims in different ways of finding our own truth,
Hmm.
right? And necessity level is a big factor in that. You know, what your necessity level is. How much do you need $100?
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to be a prostitute for it? Right? Or are you willing to clean someone's house for it? Are you willing to stay at work for an extra 2 hours when you normally go smoke cigars with your buddies?
Yep.
You know, I mean, I'm putting extremes here, but what is the necessity level,
Sure.
right? And necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Sure is.
And in real estate, it's my number one law, that few people make financial decisions purely on a spreadsheet.
Mm.
They make them at a dinner table or a company meeting or in a conversation with a family member or when they're socializing, right? Places where personal history is where the seller's own unique view of the world, ego, pride, how they've been marketed to, and uh, I can't read my own writing. how horrible is that? And how they get their odd incentives are developed,
Hmm.
right? They're all scrambled together, right?
And are they
And
not
to
also confused? Because I've
yeah,
talked to people, but I've talked to
we're going to
people
cover
later.
that.
I'll tell you later. And like you said, okay, I'll do that. You talk to them later. I don't know, maybe this. And somebody
Yeah.
said that they're so confused, I can't find out what they're trying to do.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is they're all
Yeah,
scrambled together in a
yeah.
narrative that fits their relief, that will ease them or take the stress off of the
Mm.
situation. Because I mean, Maxwell's Maltz, God bless his soul, they wrote Psychocybernetics. Books are falling in my office.
Oh,
Psychocybernetics. It's probably psychocybernetics because I said God bless
you
his
said,
soul. He'd probably
you,
send me a signal, right?
careful there, buddy.
He said he calls it the theater in the mind.
Ah, yeah.
And the strange part of this is it is most often based on concepts that are practically infants.
Infants.
Yeah, these ideas that we have, and I'm gonna bring this around. I'm telling you, this is so important, and
Mm.
it sounds like I'm like droning on here. I'm not. I want you to get this because this is where making deals is at. These concepts are practically infants. In other words, there's no details. They haven't tried and tested these methods yet. It's just it's just a concept or an abstract idea in their imagination and they think it's real,
Mm.
right? So a lot of people can't tell the difference between their imagination and their actual thoughts. Some
Mm-hmm.
people can't tell the difference between their actual thoughts, imagination, and the physical universe, right?
Afraid so.
They just have this general notion or feeling pushing the seller or pushing you what to do.
Mm.
It's a subconscious mind behavior. It's a below your awareness. These concepts and these emotions and these experiences are all wrapped up into your mind to make you believe this is what you should do.
Mm.
Right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you were a child and you fell off a bike and you got severely hurt, your mind is going to capture that incident or that time as bikes are bad, and your mind's job is to supposedly help you survive. So from that point forward, your subconscious mind is always going to tell you stay away from bikes, because last time we were near bikes, they got hurt. We got hurt.
Bikes are
So
bad.
bikes are bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bicycles are bad.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's happening to your seller when you're talking to them,
Mm.
right? And this misbehavior is what I call the invisible line, where the professional and the amateur take completely different paths that end in success or failure.
Mm.
And here's why. The seller has not tested or proven his or her theory on what they want to happen.
Mm.
They just have imagined it. They just have this logic and emotion wrapped up in the subconscious mind, motivating them to get what they want.
Yep.
Right?
Mm.
So here I'm going to break down what a professional does and what an amateur does, just to illustrate this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So am I good? Am I being too profound?
No, actually talking, I'm thinking of, one person in particular that I'm trying to get through to. I think I do, and talk again like they're not sure. And like, so I want to see what you have. I need one more tool in my chest.
All right. So the first thing the professional realizes is that this phenomenon is going on.
Mm-hmm.
That what they're telling you, this, by the way, is all rooted in my statement that I say often, especially in my seminars, is all sellers are liars.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the reason why I'm explaining today, because they're not intentionally lying to you. Like, it's, a lie is a non-confront. When I'm lying to you intentionally, like, no, Peter, I didn't steal your $10,
Yeah.
right? That's a non-confront on my part, telling you what you want to hear so you don't hurt me. That's
Mm-hmm.
what a typical pathological liar is doing. Is it's a lack of confront.
I like the
I'm
way
not talking.
I like the way you explained it. That's really interesting. It's
Okay.
really concise. That's good.
Yeah. So my point is I'm not talking about that type of a lie. What I'm talking about is actually the news has helped me make
Really.
this popular. Yeah, this is very popular now. The news has helped me
Mm-hmm.
explain this point. They call it disinformation,
Ah.
right? In other words, it's not factual,
Mm-hmm.
right? But be careful, because the person who has done the transgression
Mm-hmm.
is the person making those accusations.
Yeah.
So if I say to you, Peter, you stole $10 from me, and you're like, what are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Right? But really, I stole $10 from my wife.
Yeah.
Right? So people accuse those of what they themselves are doing.
Definitely.
And that's our entire political scene right now.
Yeah. A lot
Right?
of finger pointing.
So that is a little bit deep there, but my point is if this is the phenomenon. If the seller is accusing you of being scammed, you have to
Mm-hmm.
wonder, what did they do to scam someone,
Sure.
or what happened to make him say that or say that, right?
Yeah. They haven't
So
even started the conversation with some people. There's a text. They go, "Oh, this sounds like a scam." I haven't even talked to you yet.
right,
I mean, how do you start that way? I mean, it's not me. It's got to be him.
that's right.
I didn't do anything. I
So
didn't
the
show up yet.
first thing the professional knows is he's dealing with someone that, even if they say they've been a builder or a realtor or whatever for a long time, they don't know what they don't know.
Mm.
So the first thing is the professional recognizes this phenomenon, and he has to, or she has to break through it. right? The second thing is they start to sunder. Okay, and I'm going to explain what that means. Sunder means to take things apart and look at them.
Mm-hmm.
So 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 they start to sunder it by having, this is the professional. The professional sunders it by having the seller take it apart and look at it in different pieces
Hmm.
and how those pieces will affect the transaction.
Okay.
Results, good or bad.
Hmm.
So if you were to sell your apartment building of 10 units for $1 million and you on it's free and clear and you just want the money, A, how much will it cost you to sell? And B, how much of the capital gains tax? How much are you actually getting?
Yeah.
And that's just a very quick, not very good example, but it's sundering or taking apart and looking at all the pieces and the parts, because that person just thinks, well, I just got to pay 5%, so I'm going to pay the realtor $50,000 and I'm going to get 950,
Yeah. Sure.
right? Or just your regular seller, I'm selling for 400,000, I'm going to pay 5%, so I'm going to get 380,000,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so first you got to recognize that this phenomenon is there, that the person has these concepts all botched up in their head, right? And they have not explored in the physical universe how they actually will work. And then once you realize the phenomenon's there, then you have to walk through with the seller and take the pieces and the parts apart. You got to sunder it and take it apart and have them look at each one of these pieces and parts
Mm-hmm.
of these details and see if it's a good or bad thing for their transaction. And then number three, ask the correct questions
Mm-hmm.
so the seller can make the correct vision. Jim Camp said in his book, No, which is a great sales book, vision makes decision. Right? So you have to ask the correct questions so that you could be the Leonardo, whatever the artist is. What is his name?
Da Vinci.
Da Vinci. So you could be the Da Vinci in the deal and paint the picture of how this transaction could go once you've dissected the piece and the parts.
Mm-hmm. That's very important. I almost said it myself because we've done it so many times. But telling somebody what's going to happen, they have to believe you. When you
That's a
ask,
third party information that you're giving them.
yeah, but if you ask them, well, look at it. How much, if this happens, what's going to happen? They go, oh, I'll make this much money. They figure it out themselves. They can't disbelieve it because they sorted it out instead of just having to believe you pouring it down their throat. That's important.
And you always have to understand that every person's life is bigger than them.
What do you mean?
Every person's life, like your life, is bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
And you may realize it, but most people don't realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously there's you and all the
Mm-hmm.
decisions you make for you and your safety and your well-being and your future,
Yeah.
right? And then after that, there's your family, those that are around you that are affected. Me, I have wife and kids and mom and sisters, and there's my family.
Yeah.
Then there's my job or my business,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then there's mankind, like just in general. When I go to Walmart, all these people that bump into me all the time, they're part of my life,
Yep.
right? And
More or
of
less,
course,
sure.
there's more to it. There's my physical possessions, my house and my car. There's me as a spiritual being. There's all the my yard has plants and trees in it. That are mine, and I have to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
So your life is bigger than you,
Yeah. That
and
makes sense.
most people don't understand that. So when you're talking to somebody, you have to make sure you're helping them make their life, make all those other parts work for them so they're happy. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Happiness is the key.
Yeah.
So what does the amateur do?
Mm.
So the amateur doesn't recognize this is happening. They don't even know. They're just following the script. They don't even know. They don't know that these ideas and concepts are botched up in the seller's mind, because one thing we cannot do is put a telescope inside your head and see your pictures for you.
Mm-hmm.
So to the degree that you can A, see your own pictures clearly, and B, communicate them to another human being, is to the degree you will live a better life. Right?
Yeah.
That's why they say communication is the solvent of all problems, or the solvent of the universe, because you have the ability to articulate your own thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
and then be able to ask enough questions to articulate somebody else's thoughts. So an amateur has no idea this is even going. They don't even know that the theater in the mind is even playing. Right? And the amateur, number two, the amateur, they don't ask questions or be curious of what the seller is thinking, right? This way, or he or she has gathered these sort of unreal concepts. I used to talk about, which I stopped talking about it because it's too hard to explain, but it's called contrary facts. Contrary facts means there's two facts that seem to be the truth, but they collide.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how could that be?
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, you're dealing with this with your guy with what you keep talking about, the guy that has a $1.4 million house,
Mm-hmm.
right? So there's one fact that he has a $1.4 million house and he's a tax accountant making a lot of money. And then the next fact is, well, uh, uh, I'm not behind on my mortgage. I'm just trying to sell the house,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you may think, oh, well, those aren't contrary facts, but that's the difference between the professional and the amateur, because this house is stunning gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Why would this man, if he's making money, want to sell this house? What is motivating him to go through the arduous process of a real estate transaction?
Mm-hmm.
So they are actually contrary facts, where the amateur will never even think that way.
Yeah.
So you need to find out, why has he talked to you 15 times to sell his house?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why does he keep picking the phone up?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Those are contrary facts. There's two facts that are aligned that look like they're the truth, but they're not. And if you don't recognize that, you won't make enough deals. Right? And I could do a whole podcast on that. So we'll just do that on. So the third thing the amateur does is they don't run down or help the seller create a vision that will make a decision. I promise you, I don't care what it is. It could be getting a glass of water, or it could be marrying a spouse, or it could be Donald Trump going to Siberia. It doesn't matter what it is. This entire universe started with a person's thought. There was a mental image picture somewhere that started it. End of story.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if you plan on doing a transaction with someone, you pretty much have to, and I hate to say it this way, but just for illustration purposes, you have to manipulate the picture the seller's looking at, that vision in their mind, the theater in their mind. You have to influence that picture by giving it, by removing the false data and giving it the correct data. This is what a professional does. And it sounds really profound, and it's really simple to do.
Well, you would think, I think it sounds simple to do. You ask the person a question, it gives you an answer. You go, okay, but you would go, wait a minute, and ask two or three more questions and find out what the hell is really going on.
Right.
And I'm getting better at it, by the way. I'll let you know later. But how much can you find out on the first conversation, as opposed to taking 3 or 4 or 5 to get a whole story that in the end is like a mess? But
so when Peter says he'll tell me later, after we get done recording the podcast, we spend time together talking about our deals. Mm-hmm. So in other words, it's a lack of responsibility to allow the seller to keep thinking that they can get the impossible. because the investor's lack of curiosity or strong desire to know or learn why the seller is acting or requesting outrageous requests. Often, it's a lack of responsibility for you not to know how to do what we're talking about today and actually helping that person. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I could describe the entire real estate industry in one word, I can do that.
Whoa. Go ahead.
Help.
Ah, nice.
And the number one problem with every human being on planet Earth
Mm-hmm.
is they have experienced betrayed help.
Yep.
And they think you're just another one of those people that are going to betray them.
Mm-hmm.
These strange or unusual facts are actually the tripwire to stop using scripts and dig in, which is the most, which most miss. Like you just said, I'll stop because I have often said it's not the questions you need, it's the answers. Right?
I didn't understand that probably for 3 or 4 or 5 times that you said that until I finally realized when the person answers you, that's the gold mine you're looking at that you should ponder and say, well, what does that really mean? What's he telling me? Dig in a little deeper and see what's really happening. It's not just you ask a question to give you an answer. I'm done with that question. Screw the question. The answer is important, what he's thinking, his theater in the mind, all that stuff.
Let me give you a weird example. I'm going to give you a weird analogy, and we're way off time right now, so we're going to go a little bit longer than an hour. But let me give you a weird example.
Yeah.
You're in the jungle, and you know you got to get to the top of the mountain because you got to build a fire so that they can find you when the airplane comes by.
Okay.
The only thing you have is a compass. So you're standing in a place where you can see the top of that mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a compass, and the compass says that mountain is due north.
Okay.
And you get down into the jungle and you can't see the mountain. You're just following the compass. Right?
Yeah.
But all of a sudden the compass points due north and it made you turn around 180 degrees and walk the other way now.
Yeah.
And you're like, why is that? Why am I turning around and walking 180 degrees the other way? A perfect example is you're driving, and this has happened to me many times. You're driving and you think you know the right direction, and you don't. You're going the opposite direction. It's the same thing. So when that happens, when that compass flips around, because all of a sudden there's a magnetic field there and made the compass go north some other direction, you have to query it. You have to question it. Why did it do that? And that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You have to wonder and be curious. Why is the seller saying that?
Mm-hmm.
Why is the seller telling me this? And you need to tear it down like an onion, peel it back. Right?
Yeah.
So here's what happens. These strange, unusual facts are actually the tripwire to using scripts and dig in, which most miss, especially when the investor or entrepreneur are money motivated. And they are thinking that the spreadsheet and magical sentences are being interesting to try to get the seller to do a deal with them. They think all those things will make them a deal. When all they need to do is be interested, honest, and care about the seller. I should have went and looked for this because I think Grant Cardone said this probably the best, but I think what it is I forgot the sentence, like the seller will only care about what you know once they know you care. Right?
Yeah.
I think the seller will
Oh,
only.
I think I remember it. Wasn't the one that they don't care what you know, they want to know that you care.
There you go. Yeah.
That one. Yeah, I heard from you somewhere. Grant put that out there too.
I think it was. I don't know where I read it, but all right. So this brings me to something very important that we have to discuss.
Yeah.
When fear is in play. right? A fearful person will have a margin of safety that they'll use. So a margin of safety is raising the odds of success at a given level of risk by increasing the chances of survival.
Mm-hmm.
The counterintuitive part is that you're raising the margin of safety for you, right? Hoping that you're going to have the odds of success,
Mm-hmm.
because and this is the counterintuitive part, the higher the margin of safety, the smaller the edge you have of making deals. Well, the house is worth $200,000. I think if I could buy it for $130,000, I'd be safe. No matter what, I could sell the property,
Uh-huh.
and you won't buy the house,
Yeah, it's too safe for you, not lucrative enough for the seller.
right? So, so that's just an example.
Yeah.
But my point is if you're trying to play it safe because you're afraid of being embarrassed by what you say, or you're afraid that the seller might think you're stupid,
Hmm.
right? Or you think that the seller doesn't like you, you haven't made friends with them, you think you need to be friends with the seller,
Mm-hmm.
you're wrong. That's why you're trying to be interesting, right? Interesting. If you want to be interesting and make millions and millions and millions of dollars being interesting,
Mm-hmm.
here's what you need to do. You need to go to Hollywood and get on TV.
That's right. Get on stage. Yep.
Now, what some of you might realize or not realize, but being an actor is fake. It's scripted. It's fake. It's what somebody imagined. It's a edited version of what somebody thinks you might like.
Mm-hmm. That's
When
right.
you get behind the scene with these actors, we find out that half of them are crazy as a bat.
Mm-hmm. And not funny or not smart or not
Right.
not what you think they are, because they're just
Right.
following instruction and direction, not just the words, how
So
to
their
act, all of that.
their unedited life is much different.
Yeah.
So that's what the seller has expectation of is if you're too good and it's too good to be true and you're acting too perfectly because you're being interesting
Hmm.
instead of interested, then the seller will perceive that because they know that
Huh.
inherently.
Huh.
This is too good to be true. This guy, I don't believe this guy. He's a scam.
Hmm.
And the fearful person will do this. Now here's the punchline. This fearful person, this barbelled personality,
Mhm.
is often optimistic about the future, but paranoid about what will go wrong and essentially affect his or her survival by not doing deals. Right? This is the exact reason I wrote my book called Leads, Deals, Cash, Created Real Estate, Operator's Manual, a a brand new revealed way to retire early with leads, deals, and cash booster blueprint, because it's written for the person that is paranoid and in fear, which is almost every person when they go into creative real estate or into real estate, because real estate's the biggest thing we can buy on planet Earth,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's even bigger than stocks. It's even bigger than all billionaires. There's not a billionaire that I think I know that doesn't own real estate
Mm-hmm.
or have something to do with real estate,
Yep.
right? The only thing that's different than that is tech companies, but they always end up owning real estate, right?
Sure. Tech comes and goes and changes every few years, but
Yeah.
real estate's real estate.
Okay, now I would like to talk about my obsession with curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, planning is important. Planning is important, but not the most important. Let me get this. But not the most important part of every plan,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the most important of every plan is what I should say is to plan on the plan not going according to plan.
Yep.
So planning is important, right? But the thing you have to know is what is important about planning is that the plan is not going to go the way you plan. So why do I talk about this? I'm not talking about planning your life. I'm talking about the conversation you're having with your seller. You're
Mm-hmm.
planning, you're helping them plan their life, right? Now watch this. A plan to me means uh, a plan is to decide and arrange in advance,
Yeah.
right? So that the proposal achieves something. So notice I said something. So your proposal could achieve you learning more,
Yeah.
or your proposal could achieve you actually helping the seller move out of the house and getting a new lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Or the proposal could be that you get the property and you go sell it and make 50 grand. But realize, because there's so many coaching clients, I got a deal. No, you don't. You have like right now, you say you have a deal. You don't have a deal right now.
Mm-hmm.
You have a house on the market that could attract a deal.
Mm-hmm.
Deals come from buyers, not from sellers,
Right.
right? Sellers just give you the inventory to attract the buyers,
Mm-hmm.
right? So planning's important, but not the most important thing. The plan is what you talk about. You're not talking about the house, you're not talking about the seller, you're not talking about the buyer, you're talking about the plan. The plan is what you focus on, right? The plan is the arrangement in advance. So you are technically, and if I had a good way to say this, I wish I had my own word, but you're actually a plan strategist.
Mm-hmm.
You are helping the person because think about it. Why does a person that want to sell a house go to a realtor? Because they want a plan and they want somebody to help them to execute it. And they
Yeah.
think the realtor is going to give it to them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a plan is only useful, and pay attention to this. A plan is only useful if it can survive reality or the physical universe. And a future filled with unknown is everybody's reality. So the reason why people pick me is because I've done hundreds and hundreds of deals and I have experience with the plan. So the plan is the thing that we focus on, not the real estate. It's the plan of how do we get from here to there,
Mm-hmm.
right? In other words, once we find out what the problem is with the seller, what's the plan?
Mm-hmm.
Is it need or is it greed, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
pay attention to this. I don't have enough time because we're coming to an end here, and I still have 3 more pages of notes, so we're going to be in trouble, right?
Mm.
Now, pay attention. A plan is only useful if it can survive reality or the physical universe and a future filled with unknown, the unknown obstacles,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a plan will handle the unknown obstacles for you, me, anybody, which is why happiness is overcoming the unknowns. That's what makes you happy. In other words, having the money, the $1 million, is not the happiness. That's the success. The happiness is going through the path or through the plan and overcoming the unknown obstacles that make you feel good and make you feel happy. This is profound. I mean, I'm not going to have a lot of listeners on this podcast. This is for my coaching clients,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you help your seller overcome those unknowns with your plan, they're happy.
Mm.
They're not happy. You think that they're only happy is if they just sell the house and they get their money. No, they're happy every time you overcome an unknown obstacle and you're there helping them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's help and happiness that makes deals,
Hmm.
right? And the way you help them is to overcome the unknown obstacles because that's true happiness. right? It's going through the steps. Does this make sense?
No, it does, because I've seen you do that even when, at the beginning of a plan, when you're helping them find out things in the beginning that they didn't realize, even like this, the cost to sell, when
Right.
it's explained, they go, oh my God, I didn't know that. First, they're mad at who didn't tell them. Then they're happy we did, you or I, or both. But then in the middle of a transaction, a week in, 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, stuff comes up. And like you could freak out, or you can find a solution, whether it's right away or it takes a day or two. But when you find the solution, then everybody's happy again. And you keep overcoming things as they crop up. And you're pretty good at dealing with that. You don't freak out, and you sort out a solution.
Always have a plan.
Yeah.
And by the way, a plan could just be as simple as the next 3 to 5 steps, just to test what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because you may not know the whole plan. You don't need to do a whole strategic plan. You just need to know the next 2 or 3 steps, 5 steps.
Yeah.
Which in Creative REI Replay, which is our software company, I have all the checklists to do a deal so that you can go through step by step by step, so you know what the plan is. Right? Now watch this. So happy sellers do business with you, and they give you referrals. This is where karma comes in. That's why I say, if I could help you, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I know that what I'm helping them with is the plan. It's not the solutions. It's not the real estate. It's the plan, or the idea, or the concept in advance of how they're going to get someplace. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So I'm looking for the definition of a plan here.
A plan?
Yeah, I just gave it to you. I don't know what the hell I did with it. That's bizarre. Oh, here it is, right in front of my face. It's on the piece of paper I'm holding. A plan is to decide and arrange in advance so the proposal achieves something. Did I say that it achieves a closing?
No, because you don't always know exactly what's going to happen. You got to keep your mind open to see what actually is needed, what the something becomes. How would you know ahead of time before you find out what's going on? We don't know.
Right. So watch this. So you help somebody sort out, like the like you mentioned before, the cost to sell.
Yeah.
Or even how something works. Is it possible that you could help someone and they decide to keep their house? Yeah, that happens to me all the time. But here's the thing. You help them overcome the unknown obstacles that they had, and they became happy. So now they're gonna recompense or pay you back by getting you another lead. Right? So one of the things that is the most strangest thing to me is a lot of people are trying to make that one big deal or a couple of big deals, right?
Yeah.
In essence, what they're trying to do is they're trying to make their financial situation unbreakable. Like you're trying to do that. You're trying to make your financial plan, your finances unbreakable. In other words, you're trying to make enough money that no matter what happens, you have enough money to handle it. Right? When really compounding your skill and doing better and better deals ad hoc, in other words, without any scripts or anything, just doing them like what do they call that?
Ad libbing?
No.
No.
Begins with a P. Oh my God. I just lost my thing. Anyways, proverb, or when a comedian will just so forget about that. So when you really compound on your skills and doing better and better, and you can just ad hoc a deal, right, on the fly, anytime, is the big unbreakable financial dream that you want. It's not the money, it's your ability to get money out of thin air whenever you want,
Mm-hmm.
right? Too many want millions to be rich, right?
Yeah.
Or feel they need that to live their dream life. In other words, they don't understand money enough or they don't understand their life enough that they're trying to make it so they're financially unbreakable.
Yeah. Big safety margin.
Right. Right. So, in other words, they feel like that's freedom. They can do whatever they want because they have enough money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not enough realize you only need enough assets to provide the lifestyle you want to choose. So, plus about 10% more to continue building, your reserves.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it costs me $4,000 a month to live, I should make $6,000 a month, $5,000 or $6,000 a month. And the trick is not making money. The trick is putting your time into making that money. So most people have to work 40 hours a week or 50 hours a week to make that $4,000 plus. My
Mm-hmm.
wife does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some don't realize that if you have an asset and you work at it for 10 or 20 hours, it could give you XYZ, $500 a month,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the trick is to get your assets to pay for you. Then if all of a sudden I decided I wanted to go to Egypt,
Mm-hmm.
then I need to do a deal or I need to change. I need the assets have to provide that for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have to decide. Now, so I find not enough folks go into create real estate figuring out how much they need in assets to provide yield for the lifestyle, right? They don't
Mm-hmm.
think about that. They don't think about how many houses they need and actually have a plan or a goal. And so this I'm talking about this today because if you don't have this, you get on a call and you become anxious and needful because you're trying to make every deal because you think you need every deal to make millions of dollars so that you can have an unbreakable financial future. The professional doesn't do that. He's relaxed and knows that 1 out of 5 phone calls or 1 out of 10 phone calls, he'll get something.
Mm-hmm.
And he's willing to go through those 5, 10, or 100 phone calls, whatever the number is, right? So the interesting thing is that when you figure out how many houses you need or how much assets you need, it could be as simple as 3 to 5 houses. And it's simple. Or sometimes it's 30 to 50 houses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my last point, and then we'll get out of here, is this all comes down to what I call the person uh, in the car paradox. The person in the car paradox,
Okay. Haven't heard this one.
or just seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statements or
Mm-hmm.
position, right? So a lot of people think that others are interested. I'm just going to read it instead of trying to. So a lot think others are impressed with your possessions instead of being impressed by you.
Ah.
So you drive a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, a Rolls Royce. I have friends, I have partners like this. Instead of driving a Toyota or a Camry or a Honda, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is practical in helping your lifestyle of freedom. If you want to get more information on this, this is just not me talking. This is the book to read is The Millionaire Next Door. I don't remember who wrote it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Wealth is what you don't see. Wealth is what you don't see. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is my parting lesson for all of my listeners today. And the biggest point on being a professional versus an amateur. If you understand skill and experience are a lot like money, it is not something to flash around to get others to think you have it. It is best used by not spending your knowledge and experience to show people or your sellers how much you have or how much you know, so they will do a deal with you. Instead, the professional will take the stance with a seller that the seller needs to show them motivation and interest enough for the professional to employ his or her skill and experience to get their desired result. In other words, you need to prove to me, Mr. Seller, that you're qualified for me to give you my plan and help you execute it as a consultant, as a professional consultant that has done this many, many, many times before. You have to prove to me that you're worth my investment.
Mm.
Which is why, which an amateur doesn't do. They think everybody's going to do a deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the punchline, and as far as I'm concerned, the most important part of the podcast at the very end.
Okay.
Which is why I always say to pre-qualify who you help and who you don't help is how you're going to figure out who's a prospect, who's a suspect. This single skill of pre-qualifying is the most critical part that will get you to retire early. It's not the amount of houses you buy. It's knowing what you need to have to retire early and focus on that. In other words, you have your own plan. And then go find people to help you execute that plan. Jim Camp talks about this in his book. No, it's the mission. Your mission has to align to the cycles you do with sellers. If it doesn't, and you can't say to them, my mission is to buy 4 houses, and you're one of the people that I'm going to buy a house from, because blah, 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 it won't work. You have to have a reason to help the seller and tell them what that reason is. Because otherwise they have too much failed help in their life and they think that you're going to betray them. But if you could tell your story, I'm helping you because, my daughter needs to go to college and we applied for grants and she didn't. So I need to buy a house to make $10,000 to send her to college to get her started.
Really?
And then I need to buy another house later on. Right?
I thought they didn't care about us.
But here's the thing. I'm giving you a bad example. Let me give you a different example.
Yeah.
I specialize in helping buyers that normally couldn't buy a house get into a house. The way I do that is if you give me 3 years worth of term, I'm going to pass it on to them and I'm going to help them get a mortgage and purchase your house.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how much that help flow pushes buttons with the seller, and they're like, well, I'd like to do that for somebody. And I can't tell you, I'll bet you, I'm going to guess, it's 15 to 20%. I'm going to guess 15 to 20%. Maybe not that high. Maybe 12 to 15% of the people say, you know what? I would like to do that because I bought this house.
That way.
That way. Because somebody helped me, my father-in-law, the neighbor. That's how I got this house. Or my first house I got that way. So they want to recompense or give back.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to help them with that plan.
Yeah, they do like hearing that because it seems more selfless, like you are helping someone else. So a decent person does like that. I've heard people say that. Yeah.
So just like money, where you're trying to flash your money off to show people that you have money when you really don't, and show them that you're wealthy when you really aren't, or if you are wealthy, should flashing around because that's not usually long-term wealth, because real wealthy people like their money to go through generations, right? Not just them. The money's bigger than them, right? When somebody says, I'm going to spend all my money, I'm not going to give it to anybody, it tells me right away where they are personally. They just care about themselves and they don't care about nothing else. Their help button has been squashed. They don't want to help anybody else, right? The purpose of money is to help you live your lifestyle, which of all the places I talk, yourself, your family, grow your business, help mankind, make your yard better, all the things. Your dog and your cat, they live a good life. I mean, it's just more than just you.
Mm-hmm.
It's bigger than you, right? So money will help you get all that. It's your way of doing that, right? So too many amateurs like to show off their seminar skills, which are unproven, and give sellers too much and not needed information, and you scare them away, trying to prove to the seller that you're wealthy with information and you're this guru.
Mm-hmm.
When you're so much better off to say, this is my first deal. Can you help me do it? I would love to help you. I have a partner, I have a coach, I have a book, I have blah, 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 blah. I'd like to go through it with you. Can we learn together? You'll get a whole lot further along. This is so when you're not doing that, right? And you're just trying to pretend like just like you're buying a Lamborghini and you pretend like you're rich,
Mm-hmm.
or you're using your money to show off, right? If you're giving a seminar and you're trying to show off, this is what I call soft skills, right? In creative real estate, it's soft skills,
Mm-hmm.
right? It is underappreciated skills like we have covered today that get you the hard skills you need in today's economy and survive the real estate game. Now, I only tell you this for one reason, my punchline. I only give you this podcast for one reason, which is my punchline.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make the statement and then add the podcast, but I'm going to tell you this is an entire podcast by itself. This is a very, very profound statement. Very profound to me. Realize history never repeats itself. Only humans do. History never repeats itself. Only humans do. So I give you this podcast today that you think is not that important, or you might think it's too profound, or you think I'm off base and I'm like not even talking about real estate and I'm being this philosopher or whatever you think I'm being right now. And you're not listening to the end because I confused you or whatever. I am telling you that history never repeats itself. Only humans do. The only reason why I'm able to give this to you is because I've got 30 plus years of making mistakes. And and until the day came that I thought to myself, oh my God, that's a failure, and it crushed me. I lost $250,000 on that deal. And now I'm in debt. I got to go bankrupt.
Mm.
Until I say to myself, wait a minute, there's a lesson in there I have to learn. Until you say that, it will stick in your mind and be there forever. You need to turn it around and say, there's a lesson in there. Why did my wife yell at me? There's a lesson there. Why is the seller telling me this and telling me no? There's a lesson in there. And until you can turn it around in your head, you've missed it. And I can only tell you after today's podcast in simplistic a simplistic manner, help and happiness is how you make deals. So you need to become a plan master and figure out a plan that you can consult your seller with and make them feel comfortable. Give them a few steps that they can overcome so they can start to feel happy and know you're helping them, and you will make deals. But you need to get through the bullshit the first 5 or 10 minutes in the phone call where their social personality is up in front of you instead of their chronic personality. Like you're at a party and they're telling, oh yeah, my job is great. Everything's good. My wife. And you find out later the guy lost his job and he's divorced.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? And he didn't even tell you the truth. Until you get to that point where you break that social veneer by asking questions and really intending to help that person and granting them the beingness of being a human being and having made a mistake that you can help them with, you don't make enough deals. And I know this is so profound and it so doesn't sound like real estate, but I'm passionate about it because I almost didn't do this podcast because of this. And I can't emphasize it enough.
Mm-hmm.
So I've gone 15 minutes past our podcast time. So hopefully, Peter, you enjoyed this. Hopefully, our listeners have enjoyed this. Thank you for listening to us. Make sure you subscribe to us or like us or leave us a review wherever you're watching us. Make sure you go to creativerealestatedealology.com. No, it's a creative real estate dealology newsletter.com/subscribe to get my free newsletter. It comes out every Saturday morning. It is totally free. Also, make sure you go to Amazon, type in William Hawthorne, which is HAWTHORN, no E, and get my book, Leads, Deals, Cash, Creative Real Estate Operators Manual. You will be very, very surprised. I'm not saying it because I wrote it. I'm telling you because it's 30 years of coaching and helping people, and it wasn't written for me, it was written for you. And everything we talked about today is in that book, nice and easy, step by step. All right?
Yep.
Over and out. Make sure you flourish and prosper. And again, thanks for your support. Have a good week. We'll talk to you on podcast number 460. Good day.